The woman repeated the movements in her hands every day, occasionally kicking the scarf she was knitting under her feet. The scarf became longer and longer, and soon reached the edge of the cliff. As the scarf fell down, the woman immediately increased her knitting speed until she was pulled to the ground by the scarf, and she realized that something was happening. She hurried to the edge of the cliff and watched the scarf fall quickly. She immediately increased her knitting movements, trying to catch up with the speed of the scarf, but she was not as fast as it fell. When the scarf fell completely, she was also pulled down by gravity. But even though her life was hanging by a thread, the woman still did not give up her obsession, but knitted faster and faster. As the movements in her hands became faster and faster, she slowly climbed up the cliff. After standing firmly on her feet, the woman increased her knitting speed again and even fluttered in the wind like a kite. She stepped back, and there was no danger of falling. This time, she enjoyed the happiness of the scarf more. But her wool was limited. As the last ball of wool was used up, the towel flying in the air fell down and continued to fall towards the cliff. The woman did not want to lose the scarf and pulled it upwards desperately. But her strength was limited, and her eyes were full of seeing herself being dragged off the cliff. The wind blew her hair off her head. She seemed to have seen a life-saving straw. She continued to weave the scarf with her hair instead of wool. She immediately saw hope, and her hands worked very fast. But the length of hair was limited after all. Until she used up all her hair, she had to find a new substitute. However, the falling scarf was ruthless and dragged her to the edge of the cliff. At this moment, she finally remembered that there was a pair of scissors next to the chair. She could survive by cutting her hair, but her fate was not up to her. The scarf was too heavy, and she had no choice. The woman was able to fight against it, and finally she was dragged off the cliff. After a while, a woman with short hair slowly climbed up the cliff. It turned out that she bit off her hair with her mouth, so she was able to escape. However, the woman who was obsessed with knitting picked up the knitting needles and started the action in her hands again. At this moment, she finally realized how deep she was trapped, so she threw the knitting needles off the cliff. This time, she was finally freed. She slowly sat on the chair and picked up the scissors on the ground, but she was obsessed with the collision sound of the scissors opening and closing, so she began to cut her nails endlessly. Although she regained a new life, she fell into a new mystery.